Hi friends, welcome to my channel. This is your Govindraj. Thank you very much for watching my previous videos and also your likes and comments and sharing all my videos to your contacts. Thank you very much. And today we are going to talk about the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code. I'm going to give you certain highlights on this code, and especially which are very key, and also the snapshot I'm going to give you. And so far on this topic we talked about basically the annual leave with wages and the changes with respect to this topic. We also talked about the overtime working and the details and provisions about this, and more importantly we also talked about the future of contract labor system while comparing with the current law as well as the future which is going to come in the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code. Now let me give you an overall perspective of this OSH and WC code along with certain key highlights, so that you are able to pick up and take away from this video. And keep watching this channel for more and more updates, and thank you once again, and let's proceed friends. So friends, this piece of legislation amalgamates 13 legislations which are basically related to factories, mines, dock workers, and BOCW we famously call as building and other construction workers, plantation labor, contract labor, interstate migrant worker, we can also shortly call as ISMWs, and working journalists and newspaper employees, motor transport workers, sales promotion employees, BD and cigar workers, and of course cine workers and cinema theaters. These are the 13 legislations which are brought under this code, and all the provisions are merged into this code. And this code provides a broader legislative framework to secure just and humane conditions of work. And coming back to the objective of the code, if you understand, this piece of legislation consolidates the law relating to on this topic, and also this code is also amending the provisions related to occupational safety, health and working conditions of the persons employed in an establishment. And of course whatever the matters which are connected on this topic, this code is going to deal with that. And importantly, an establishment definition is very important, because this code focuses on establishment while narrating certain special provisions with respect to BOCW, employment of women, factories, mines and dock workers, and also contract labor definition. So as I said, since the establishment definition is very important, it has got a uniform coverage for establishment which are covered under the code. So we are going to discuss what is this establishment and also give you certain highlights so that you can take away from this video. So coming back to this code contains 143 sections, and there are three schedules. These three schedules are basically which are the hazardous industries, notifiable diseases, and also on what matters this occupational safety and health conditions the central government can prescribe standards. So these are the three schedules, and there are 143 schedules. And if you look at how the structure of this code is designed, there are 14 chapters, whereas there are two chapters which are related to special provisions. Of course, there are chapter 10 is talking about special provisions relating to employment of women. There is another chapter which is chapter 11. This talks about special provisions with reference to factory, contract labor, interstate migrant workers and dock workers, and also mine and other provisions. And we will talk about also how these special provisions are applicable, because we also talk about establishment definitions. Of course, there are other chapters which are offenses and penalties, and there is one social security fund chapter, and how these offenses are regulated and are taken for punishments. All those things are explained in this chapter. Now I'm going to talk to you certain highlights. I'm going to give you a brief about these changes which are brought in the code. Now if you look at the framework of this legislation, as I said, this legislation covers all establishment employing 10 or more workers. If any establishment is related to a trade or business or industry or occupation or any manufacturing, then everything, all such kind of establishments are covered under this code. So therefore the coverage of the provisions of this legislation has been enhanced. And if you look at this code, does not give any exclusions based on charitable or non-profit based establishment, even though in the industry definition excludes certain service or charitable based organization, because this topic is related to safety and health and working conditions. Therefore, and any such kind of establishments are available, so there is a certain amount of occupation or certain category of occupations are going to be there. So therefore it is not excluded in any such establishment. However, there are certain exclusions in case of public institutes where you do a training, and also the skill based institutes, the provisions are available to exempt such establishment. And of course, thanks to the COVID-19 and pandemic situations, there are exemptions provisions are given to appropriate government to exempt from the provisions of the code during these special situations. And also for new establishment, there are certain provisions are provided, and barring that, it does not give any exclusions or exceptions to all this covered establishment. And if you look at all these 13 legislations, there were different thresholds for applicability of various provisions, including safety, health, working conditions, welfare, and annual leave with wages, because these are the provisions which are related to mines, factory, plantation. So they had their own thresholds. Now because of this consolidation, now you will see a uniform threshold limits for application of these provisions, which includes safety, welfare, amenities, and also working conditions. And this has made very simple, and the code has tried to bring uniformity as far as possible. And the code also has looked into the developments in technology, and the operations and special type of works are also included under the code. Take example, for example, today 3D printing is the new technology, whereas the code in the manufacturing process, while defining this has already got this kind of technology related issues. And coming back to today's technology, even your registers and returns, and also of your registration, everything is going to be electronical. And more and more these technology advancements have given these facilities. Therefore this registration process, returns filings, and registration electronically is exclusively provided. So case of interstate migrant workmen, because the interstate migrant workmen related working conditions was dealt by a separate legislations, and the code also has got provisions related to this topic, and that law has been merged. Now earlier, if you look at the Interstate Migrant Workers Act, that applicability was based on establishment and the contractor, and the definition of ISMWs was covering only workers employed by or through the contractor. Now if you look at the scope of the code, this covers workers who are directly employed by the employer, in addition to the workers employed through contractor. So not only workers employed through contractor, even if you hire directly by the employer interstate migrant workmen, this code also gives and provides protections. Of course, who are ISMWs and everything is defined. If any interstate migrant worker if he is drawing more than 18,000 rupees monthly salary, then that person is not called as an interstate migrant workman. And it is also the applicability of the special chapter is also, there are certain threshold limits are available. So whereas the earlier law on ASMWs was talking about 5 or more interstate migrant workers. Now whereas the code is talking about 10 or more ISMWs. If there are there, only the special chapter related to ISMWs is going to cover. So going ahead, friends, now there will be a national body called National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Board, which is called as National Advisory Board. This nodal agency is going to advise the government on occupational safety and health and working conditions. And now, because of the provisions in the code, the penalty collected from the default employers, now the courts have the power to award part of this penalty to the victims or legal heirs in case of industrial accident leading to death. So this possibility has been brought. And if you look at all these 13 legislations, the entire 13 legislations had around 622 sections now, which are amalgamated, and all these provisions are brought under 143 sections. And how this is possible? Because this is achieved basically by bringing all the common definitions together and rationalizing the provisions and organizing relevant provisions under chapter wise and together. And also, the code provides a scope to frame standards, rules, bylaws, and orders. So the certain provisions are now left with the appropriate government and also central government. So therefore, the abstract of the act need not contain these rules and bylaws, and therefore the scope of the act is now into amalgamated or contained in 143 sections. Coming back to another highlight, you must have heard in the newspaper that this issue of appointment letter to employees is now made mandatory, and probably this will also help in reducing the exploitation of the employees or workers. And this can become a compliance requirement for employers, because if you read the text of the law, it is talking about you have to issue an appointment letter within 3 months from the date of commencement of the code. And naturally, your appointment letter will not be in this prescribed format, and it does not mean that your regular appointment letter has no value. It will have a value, because that is the contract of employment, and that is governed by the contract also contract law also. Therefore, that is going to be there. However, the law wants to make sure that the appointment letter should be given to the employee with certain prescribed details. It could be their date of joining, it could be their ESI and PF number, and also certain other information. So therefore, you can look into already the central rules, which is already given certain format, and you can already understand what kind of template is going to come in your state. And there are separate registrations are required under various registrations. You take, for example, Factories Act, you take for example, Interstate Migrant Workers Act, Contract Labor Act. So you need different registrations or licensing under these legislations. Now, because of this code, the single registration is going to be the law, or one license or one registration and one written policy will definitely come into picture. This will help the employers in compliance matters. And going ahead, friends, now the code also provides for annual health checkup of all the employees. This compliance is not universally is going to applicable to all the employees or all the class of employees. The appropriate government is going to prescribe what kind of employees or what class of employees are required to be provided with annual health checkup. So that is going to come. You have to look into your appropriate government or state government rules, so that you can already find out about this. So if you look at the rules framed by the central government, it is already talking about employees who have crossed the age of 45 years have to be given with mandatory annual health checkup facility as per the provisions of the rules. And depending upon your state rules, what is going to come, so you have to make sure that this compliance is done. And if you look at today, the employment of women is quite restricted in certain subject to certain conditions, and especially during night shift it is restricted, and especially between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. this is restricted, and there are a lot of conditions. All these restrictions are going away. However, the code is mandating certain precautions to be taken with reference to your their safety and also health and working conditions. conditions, you have to make sure that adequate safeguards have been provided, and you also need a consent to employ them in the night shift. And there are also no restrictions of overtime. As of today, there are restrictions of overtime for women employees. You normally you are prohibited from getting the overtime work done from the women employees. So all these restrictions are going away, which is good thing in the code. And now going ahead, the central government will take more and more active role, because to bring uniformity in labor laws across the country. So there are provisions have been brought, and the powers have been given to the central government in this way. And look at the power of the appropriate government. It is narrowed down, and it provides certain provisions where only the appropriate government can make rules, and there are huge powers, and especially there are specific powers on occupational safety, health and working conditions for central government to prescribe. As I said, in the in my video, which is related to contract labor system has undergone a serious change. On this topic, I have dealt in details. If you are interested, you can watch this video and get to know more about it. And of course, the provisions for decriminalization of offences are provided in the code, and executive is also provided with judicial powers to inquire. As I said, the central government is assuming more and more power. I talked about the national board, and the central government is now obligated to notify and declare the standards for health and safety for occupational safety and health for national applications. And also the health and working conditions are going to be prescribed by the central government as as per the text of the code. And the provisions related to welfare are going to be prescribed by the central government, because the establishment covers factory as well. So therefore, and also the guidelines or the provisions related to crush facility are also going to be declared by the central government. So therefore, going ahead, this uniformity will happen because of the central government taking more and more active role. So that is important to know. So friends, I gave you a lot of updates on this code, and my coordinates are here. If you have any clarifications or you have any points to discuss with me, you are always welcome. So far, as I said, so far I gave you a lot of highlights on this code, important code, which is occupational safety, health and working conditions code. And I'm going to come up with more and more topics on this topic. And stay connected, and keep watching this channel for more updates. And as I said, I have already dealt 3 topics on this code. If you are interested, you can please watch these videos. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe the video and share it to all your contacts, so that they also get benefited. Thank you very much, and see you soon, friends.